In this episode of The Bear Roars, Dan chats with Tamim Khalfa, co-founder and CEO of Toters, a company revolutionizing food delivery service in the Middle East. Tamim reflects on his journey building a business in a tumultuous setting and shares the difficulties he faced with Toters due to the backdrop of Lebanon's economic and social challenges. Tamim is also an Endeavor entrepreneur and board member through Endeavor Lebanon. Endeavor Lebanon is a part of Endeavor Global, supporting more than 2,500 high-impact scale-up entrepreneurs in 45 markets around the world. Let's poke the bear to kick off the conversation.
Hey, Tamim.
Hey. How's it going?
I want to go back to September 25th, 2023. And I want to talk about that day, and then I want to talk about a lot that has happened since then. Okay, so that day, I met you at 11:15 in the morning, your time, and you gave me a tour. Tell us what you gave me a tour of.
So I hadn't realized it's been a year. It's been a year since since September.
15 months, yeah.
Yeah. I remember giving you a tour of our offices in Lebanon. Mm-hmm. I gave you a tour of Beirut. I gave you a tour of our warehouses, our dark grocery stores.
So let's talk about your warehouses and your dark grocery stores. So tell me about that warehouse tour, dark grocery store tour you gave me. What did I see? Where were we at?
Yeah, so it's one of 10 warehouses, dark grocery warehouses we have in Lebanon. They're called Toters Fresh. Those are dark stores that you can order groceries from on our app, Toters app. And the grocery store we gave you a tour on was under our office, our main office, our head office. And we showed you the process with which our pickers, who are processing orders for customers, pick out the items for the order and put it in bags and get it ready for drivers to pick it up and deliver it to customers.
Yeah, and it was such a vibrant environment. I still remember all of the drivers pulling up on scooters, right? That's mostly what they get around on, waiting by the window, the team inside of the dark grocery store running around, fulfilling the orders, packing them up, handing them through the window. Another driver's waiting, another bag is waiting. I mean, it was just booming. People were working hard, vibrant, had a mission, had a purpose. It was so interesting to see and put in perspective kind of what you created at Toters. And we're going to talk a lot later on in the podcast on what you created at Toters. But then after we spent about an hour at the warehouse, I went on a tour with some other friends of mine. Picture that's the same day. The same day. So I left you in the morning. My friend George Nazi, who now is, did you see what George is doing now?
No.
You haven't?
I haven't.
Oh my gosh. He is in Saudi Arabia, heading up their entire AI program. His boss's boss is no other than the ruler of the party, MBS himself.
Okay, so that's cool.
Yeah, so you guys should reconnect for certain, or I'll reconnect you. But he's very senior there and doing some incredible things. How ironic is that? But anyways, George is from Lebanon. He met me from Belgium, and he took me on at least a 4-hour tour of the mountainside around Beirut, in and out of villages. He would point out, this is a Christian village we're going through. Now we're going through a Hezbollah village. I remember asking him at the time, do I need to be worried about anything? And he and the other guy kind of just shrugged their shoulders and they're like, nah, we think we'll be okay. Let's just hope we don't get pulled over. But we stopped at a couple old, I guess you'd call them tourist attractions. I don't want to downplay it, but different kind of old relics. We got out and walked around in the hilly area. We We look down over the city of Beirut itself, which tell people if you're on the foothills above Beirut, looking down on Beirut and the water adjacent to it, maybe if you can describe how beautiful that is.
Yeah, it's really a fascinating country with a very rich, scenery. You have Beirut, which is the capital of the country, and it's quite dense. So that's the heart of the country. That's where the highest density is, and then around Beirut, there's what we call the suburbs, and then the mountains, the Mount Lebanon area. And then beyond that, there's the north and then the south, right? Lebanon is a small country, but it has a diverse population and a diverse climate and landscape. So in a matter of 1 hour, you can go from sea level to a couple of thousand meters above seawater. So up in the mountains, you can see the entire city. You can see the water, and so it's you can experience a lot of nature in different parts of it. If you're in Lebanon, there's a running joke, or like Lebanese people always say, Lebanon is a country where you can ski in the morning and then go to the beach in the afternoon. Yeah. So that's a running joke. It's not really the case because it's cold in the winter. But within an hour, you can go from 2,000 meters where people ski in the winter to the beach where it's really nice and it gets really hot in the sun.
Yeah, because I remember seeing the chairlifts. I'm like, it was not winter when we were there, but I'm looking up and saying, what are those chairlifts for? Like, these are the ski hills. Maybe they call them ski mountains, but I'm in Colorado, so we call them ski hills compared to what we have here in Colorado. That's funny because in Colorado, we say something similar. You can play golf during the day, drive for an hour, and ski one of the most beautiful ski resorts in the in the afternoon. And it's very similar.
I'm yet to visit Colorado. Our slopes are modest. they're not. I mean, I haven't seen the Colorado slopes, but I hear a lot about them. I actually just got to learn how to ski properly with my sons because they're getting to learn how to ski. So I took advantage, and I'm getting better. Hopefully,
good. Well, we would love to host you, and your son out here. So
thank you.
I spend the afternoon. It's eye-opening for me because not only was that my first time in Lebanon, it was my first time in the Middle East. And on that trip, I went to Jordan, I went to Turkey, which is technically not the Middle East. I went to the UAE, and then I came back a second time, went to the UAE and went to Saudi Arabia. So I had a really good flavor for the Middle East. So I spend the afternoon with my friend George and another friend. We drive around, and I see this vibrant, city perched on some great waterways with kind of beautiful mountains behind it. And we're rushing to get back. I meet up with you and several others, and we had just an incredible outdoor dinner. And I'm looking down to make sure I get the name of the restaurant. It was at the M Sharif Cafe.
Yeah. So I thought about you guys the other day. I was there with a friend 3 days ago having dinner, and it's a traditional, it's a Lebanese cuisine, serving Lebanese food like shish taouk, hummus, tamboule, like the usual suspects of the Lebanese cuisine. But this is one of the restaurants that went international in Lebanon. So it's a very successful restaurant. I think it got bought, or a PE firm bought majority or a big part of it, and they've set up a few of them around the region and internationally. I've seen one in Paris. There's one in Iraq. There's one in Dubai. There's a few of them around the world. So it's one of those quite very successful restaurants in Lebanon. Very delicious food.
For the first time, Dan Caruso pulls back the curtain in his book Bandwidth, a memoir that celebrates the pioneers who invented the internet's early backbones, the renegades who lit the fiber revolution, the antics that caused the biggest market crash of all time, and the new wave of entrepreneurs who led the industry back from its ashes. Though it seemed to happen in the blink of an eye, the Bandwidth adventure was a multi-decade roller coaster ride involving larger-than-life successes and devastating failures. The unbridled ambition of newly minted billionaires and high-profile tycoons created extraordinary value, unprecedented value destruction, and endless opportunities for a brave few. This reflects tech's past, present, and future, and is a story you won't soon forget. It will help you prosper during today's AI tech bubble. The book is available for pre-order at dan-caruso.com/bandwidthbook and released in early 2025.
Yeah, and we're having a big dinner outside. We were outdoors. As best I could tell, there was, you didn't see security people around you in the streets. You felt safe. You felt secure. I remember it was just a fun, vibrant dinner. Most people knew each other. Some didn't know each other, so they were meeting for the first time. I was meeting many of them for the first time. I think George was with us at the dinner, if I remember right. And it was just a great dinner. And the reason I started this whole podcast to play out that day is because that was late September of last year. Within kind of 2 weeks, everything changed. So tell us what this last, 15 months has been like from your vantage point. And we'll come back and talk a lot about Toters. So maybe talk about it now first, not about it from a Toters lens, but talk about it from a more personal, family, friends kind of lens.
Yeah. So it's actually our troubles in Lebanon started before that, 5 years before that. 5 years before you guys, or 4 years before you guys visited, actually around September as well, 2019, there was a run on the banks. The fundamentals of the banks in the country were not okay. And so there was a run on the banks. People lost a lot of their money. All depositors in Lebanese banks lost their money. And people saw their life savings evaporate.
Wow.
And that led to many crises since then, starting from, a severe devaluation. Over 90% of the local currency lost its value. Removal of subsidies, increased prices. In August 2020, there was an explosion that rocked the port of Beirut and destroyed a quarter of the city. And then, one problem.
And on that explosion, because we drove by the building that was most affected multiple times, tell us a little bit more about that explosion. And you were, the Toters team was kind of in harm's way for that, if I recall.
Yeah. I don't want to get to what was there, but because nobody knows what happens, there's many theories and there's many possible ones, right? But somebody was storing explosives or explosive material, flammable or explodable material in one of the warehouses in the port of Beirut, and somehow, or that warehouse got exploded, and that blast was characterized as the third most powerful blast behind the two nuclear bombs on Japan. That's the impact of this explosion. And the time I was, I can't tell the distance, but I was at the rooftop of the Four Seasons, which overlooks the port. And my friends and I were looking at a fire that seemed to be coming out of that warehouse. And then eventually that warehouse exploded, and you can look up that explosion on YouTube.
Sure.
There's several footages of it. It's horrifying. It does look like a nuclear bomb. And so that really destroyed the city. Our offices were 2 blocks away from the port at the time. So a lot of our employees got hurt. Our offices got destroyed. And so we had to eventually relocate to a completely different area the day 2 days after, because we also needed to restart the business. A lot of restaurants, a lot of partners relied on us, and we get to what Toters is. But we felt the responsibility towards the business and everybody that relies on it to restart it a couple of days after, from where we are today, where we stay, where we've reset up. And so, just going back to what's happened before, we've had a few years of really deteriorating circumstances in Lebanon. And by the time you guys visited, September 2023, you're saying everything was safe. People were getting by. The country lives on remittances. So a lot of successful Lebanese leave the country, end up working outside in other countries, and then they remit back money to help their families. And there's a private sector in the country that also that keeps some people employed. And so that was the situation in September. And then the Gaza war started, and we have a part of a political party, an armed political party in Lebanon, Hezbollah, that is tied to to Hamas and to Iran, and they all decided. I think I don't want to get too much politics, but
yes.
They started fighting, and that's had implications on the country. So that started without necessarily the consent of the Lebanese government. It's just a war that started. And so initially we were scared. There was an exchange of rockets, what they called tit for tat in the news. So Hezbollah fires a rocket to support the resistance in Gaza, and Israel launched strikes back, or Israel strikes and then Hezbollah strikes back. So that went on. Initially, we were scared because, you didn't know, you couldn't predict how this was going. And all embassies in Lebanon urged their citizens to leave the country. All of them. I kept seeing U.S. embassy warnings, Canadian embassy warnings, get out while commercial flights are available. And we have, my family had just come back from Washington. They were living there during the past 3 years because of the deteriorating situation in Lebanon. And then at one point we decided, we can't live apart. Why don't you just come back to Lebanon? So they come back to Lebanon in September, and then the war starts. So the kids are in school. We don't want to destabilize them again. So we're okay, let's wait this out. We decide to go to the mountains you were talking about. So we rented a place in the mountains, because typically the mountains are safe in them. So we go to the mountains. We stay there for 2 months. The same rhythm of striking back continues. And so eventually we feel, okay, this is just going to continue to be like that until they find a political solution for the Gaza situation, right? So we go back, and for the first 8-9 months, we're living this fear of 2024. The first 8-9 months of 2024, we're living this fear. And there will be a war between Hezbollah, a full-out war between Hezbollah and Israel. There will not be a third war between Hezbollah and Israel. And we're just guessing. And then eventually, in September 2024, a few months ago, when a year after you visited, Israel decides to fully escalate with Hezbollah, and they they assassinate or they bomb the headquarters of Hezbollah, where their leader was having a meeting, and he ends up dying. So, like the what we call the escalated version of the war started then, because then the airstrikes
So it was
were
3 months. That's 3 months ago, right? That's in September.
Yeah,
of this year.
Between September and end of November, there were ongoing strikes every day on the south of Lebanon, the east of Lebanon, the border with Syria, and the suburbs of Beirut, where a lot of supporters of Hezbollah lived. So that's where the concentration of the bomb. We obviously immediately went to the mountains again to stay away from any, as away as possible, right, from any potential airstrike that could hit you. So lessening the probability of being targeted. And so that went on for a while. And when you're in the mountains, you could hear the airstrikes. You could hear them every day. There's drones flying over the city throughout the day. You can hear the buzzing of a drone. You can hear the sonic booms, because sonic booms have two bangs. But the drone, but an airstrike is just one bang. So you start telling the difference, and if you're in the mountain and you have line of sight to the Beirut suburb, you can see the bombs, and it's just
And tell us, when you say you're in the mountains, because lots of people from the city would have gone to the mountains. Where are they living? Where are they sleeping at night? I'm sure there's full variety.
The mountains are built up, right? So there's different towns in the mountains. The mountain is as close as 10 minutes away from the city, right? So you're not that far. You're just up a hill. And a lot of people have either second homes or rented, like us. Like we had to rent a new place. So that's what we did, and a lot of people did that. And some people, we have the means to rent, and some don't have the financial ability to rent anything. And in a situation like this, there's more demand than supply, so prices end up going up. So it becomes a very difficult situation. But you try to lessen the probability of being exposed or being, directly impacted by airstrike.
So tell us about, if you're comfortable doing so, tell us about how it was for your kids and how they were processing what was happening. What kind of conversations would you have with them?
The good news is that when we went to the mountains, when you're in the house, you can't hear any airstrikes. So unless you go out and it coincides with an airstrike, you would not hear it. And so our kids, they're quite young. The oldest is 7 years old. They didn't hear anything. My kid once heard a sonic boom. I told him it's a sonic boom, but I didn't tell him what I told him there's an airplane that, flew very fast, that it created this effect, but I didn't necessarily get into the details because I don't want to expose them to this. It's too early.
Gotcha. So now it's December. How are things on the ground there?
When in December, when the escalation, when the war started, escalated to a new level, to the level I was telling you about, a lot of people left the country. Some people went to the mountains. Some people stayed put because they couldn't do anything else. And then 2 months of intense fighting and bombing, and then eventually a ceasefire was reached between Israel and Lebanon. And that's been a big relief for us. it feels like a lot better. We're a lot less stressed. There's a lot of, there's a lot of analysis in the news on whether the ceasefire would hold or not. I'm optimistic that it would. But I see people coming back. The Middle East Airlines, the national airline, kept flying throughout the airstrikes in and out of Lebanon. And like I flew out to Dubai for a week during that period. And like you try to coincide your flights during the daytime because the airstrikes intensified at night. So you don't want to land at night because the airport is close to the subway where a lot of the airstrikes are. So anyway, I fly out for a week, and the way out of Lebanon is full, but the flight coming in is kind of empty because nobody's coming back to Lebanon. Now it's the opposite.
Everyone wants to get out.
So I went to Dubai again after the ceasefire agreement was reached, and the way out was kind of like nobody, like it wasn't so full, but the coming back was quite full. Can't find a seat.
That's got to make you feel good.
It does.
Yeah.
I got a bit of peace can't hurt anybody.
Okay. So we talked about this environment that you've been in. I know from the vantage point sitting here in the U.S., those of us who've been out there, which is a small number, have maybe more of an appreciation. But in general, there is a feeling of despair out here for the people of that region. Whatever your kind of perception might be of what is happening out there and why, put that aside. But the impact, on the humans that are out there, the people, is not lost on people out here. But this whole time, you're building a business. Not just building a business, you're running a business. And it's an essential business. And it's a big business. It's a big business. It's not, it's not some small startup with 5 or 10 employees. It's a vibrant company, doing a couple $100 million of revenue. I think that's probably, I know there's the gross revenue that's higher, but the net revenue is in that give or take vicinity. So this is a significant business, significant business that is playing an essential role in the lives of the Lebanese people and significantly in Iraq as well. So tell us about this business, Toters. Tell us what it is today. So, because I want to make sure people who are listeners kind of understand the magnitude of what you're doing today. And then we're going to go all the way back and tell about what you were doing before Toters that led to you launching Toters.
Yeah, sure. So Toters is, the name comes from to tote. To tote is a tote bag is, it's a tote bag.
Yeah.
Tote bag is. But the verb to tote is to carry. And so when we started the business, we wanted to help people carry their things from one place to another. If I were to describe the business for somebody like in the US, it's like a Uber Eats plus GoPuff in one, or Uber Eats plus Amazon Fresh in one company. So we have what we call our marketplace business unit. We run
and the reason you made the distinction to Amazon Fresh is because Amazon Fresh is delivering out of Amazon locations to bring not just supplies, but fresh food and other day-to-day needs. And you guys have this collection of warehouses, dark stores. How many do you have altogether? How many are in Lebanon?
25.
How many are in Iraq?
So we have 10 in Lebanon, 15 in Iraq, and growing. We still haven't covered all of Iraq with the warehouses, and we still haven't covered all of them.
How many did you say in Iraq?
15. 15.
So 15. So 25. I visited one of them. 25 of those vibrant warehouses to to deliver in the regions that they're located.
Yeah. So there are warehouses that hold 6,000 to 7,000 SKUs, and including produce, fresh meats, and so they're just like a market, a grocery
and
store.
a liquor section.
Yeah, in Lebanon, not in Iraq. It's like a lot of our customers. We've actually started this business. We started with a marketplace business, so we're just a three-sided marketplace. Customers, local stores, mainly restaurants, and riders or drivers. So when we started this, we started connecting restaurants with customers and getting freelance drivers to deliver the food. And eventually we ended up, we went on to aggregate any local store. But most of our business today is food, delivering food from this business unit. And we actually expanded this marketplace to grocery stores. People liked it, but often felt a lot of friction ordering grocery stores from third-party partners because of many issues that could come up in such a model. Because we don't have full control over the inventory, the prices, and the availability and the delivery times. So people felt disappointed. And so when we were thinking about how to improve the business and how to solve customers' problems, we found grocery to be a very big pain point, a very big gap. People wanted it; they didn't get what they wanted out of the marketplace, and so we built this Toters Fresh business unit. We started building it in 2019, end of 2019, and then in 2020, in April, which was about around the time COVID lockdown started, we launched our first warehouse. So the value proposition is you get 67 to basically you can shop online, right? You get it in 20 to 30 minutes. What you see is what you get, no friction. Prices are good. And that's the value prop.
Yeah. Maybe describe in both Lebanon, Iraq, describe what, here where I live, I could hop in my car, ride my bike, even walk to kind of a grocery store, a Walmart, and I could, a Whole Foods that's owned by Amazon, and I could go buy whatever I want to buy, bring it here. So we do have people deliver, particularly, well, I guess from more than one of the grocery stores to our house, but it's easy to go and shop there. But in those countries, there aren't kind of these larger grocery stores, supply stores that people can easily go to like they can here, I don't think. So maybe describe
So Lebanon, I think, just to describe it, they exist, but not to the same level of development as you would see in the US. So, and Lebanon is more developed than Iraq in that sense. So we have those channels, what we call modern trade. And then the others are what we call traditional trade, which are the small grocery stores holding 1,000 to 2,000 SKUs. You find them in different neighborhoods. And when you look at Lebanon, we have a few of those big chains that you're talking about. But there's still that fragmentation in the market with those traditional trade players. In Iraq, the traditional trade players are even a bigger part of the market, over 90%. And so while you can have one or two good or big chains, they're not as big as the size of the country. So when we came with this value prop, and we're just catering to the customers that would order food from us or from restaurants, people found it convenient. But as we scaled, people started finding it's not just convenient. It's also, I can find anything I want. It's not just a corner store, neighborhood grocery store. It's actually a grocery store replacement I can rely on from the comfort of my house, and delivery price is reasonable, and the prices of what we're selling are competitive. And so now in Lebanon and Iraq, we're among the top 5 grocers in the country. I'm not talking about online. So we're the number 1 online channel when it comes to this. But even when you look at the whole business of aggregates, we're among the top 5.
And how maybe talk about kind of how people pay and where that money comes from, because you said earlier you've had the massive devaluing of the local currency. So how are these transactions done? How is the money protected at the end of the day relative to being subject to risk from other kind of effects on the local currencies?
Yeah. So I mean, in Lebanon, it's a different. I mean, the history of payments in Lebanon is different than in Iraq. When we first started, we started with accepting credit cards only. That was 2017. We didn't have any banking trouble at the time, and so we catered to a niche part of the population. And the following years, we opened up cash. So cash payments represented 20-30% of our total payments volume, and we were just still in Lebanon. Fast forward to 2019, end of 2019, we were in Iraq and in Lebanon, with a lot of complexities to how we would accept payments. So a lot of our payments were either strictly cash, because Iraq is majority cash economy, like 95% cash. And in Lebanon, you had people who had money in bank accounts that were basically just digital. It was just digital money because nobody would accept it. It was just a number in a bank. And so it had its own value. You had the local currency, which devalued every day. And you had US dollars. So customers wanted to pay in any of those currencies. So we had to build support for accepting all of this and translating the value of each one into our books, into how we manage money, into how we did payouts to our partners and to the drivers. And so Lebanon crisis created a lot of complexities in managing the whole process and managing payouts to our partners. But one common issue that we have today, or common behavior, let's say, if it's not an issue anymore, is people want to pay with cash. So a lot of cash at our scale, it's a few $1 billion a day. And so what do you do with all that cash distributed to all those drivers? So what we do is we integrate with agents that around the city, like money transfer agents around the city. And we upstream the cash from the drivers to those agents and to our bank accounts eventually. So it's a very distributed setup that is managed through integrations with money transfer companies, and we have controls over how much drivers can hold before they have to deposit that cash with the agents.
Great. And a lot of the transaction, maybe take us through the ordering process. Like what does your customer do when they want to order from you?
So very similar experience to let's say you want to order a pizza. It's a very similar experience to what you would experience ordering Uber Eats or DoorDash. You'd open the app, detects your location, you browse through the restaurants, you can add the pizza of your choice to your cart, and you go to the checkout, you select the address, and you select the payment method. You place the order, you can track your order, and then it arrives, you pay in cash, and if you paid by credit card, nothing needs to be done. extremely like super similar process to like typical delivery app in North America or Europe.
Great. So putting those two together, the ordering process, same thing we'd experience out here. You pull up an app, you see what is available in your area. Maybe you're ordering from a restaurant. Maybe you're ordering from the warehouse. Stuff's brought to you. So that part of the experience would look very similar. But the payment dynamic is where it gets a bit more complicated, as you took us through. So tell us a little bit more about the FinTech side of what you've built and what you're doing.
Yeah, so we have we like to think of it as a mini Stripe under as a layer that supports the whole business in the platform. So every stakeholder or every side of the three-sided marketplace, and also the suppliers of the warehouses, each stakeholder has a wallet. And at every transaction or after each order gets delivered, a number of records are created to make sure we're managing the payables to the different partners, or we're accounting for them and bookkeeping them properly. And obviously, the partners have full visibility over what they're minus our fees. And so, this system of managing payables and payouts is those are our wallets, and each stakeholder that we have to pay out is on a billing frequency and cycle that we manage. So some people are on weekly frequency, some are on monthly frequency, and you have to spread out those payments over the weeks and months to manage your working capital, so as to make the most efficient setup and manage the funds as efficiently as possible. So all of that is done through the platform, and all the stakeholders have visibility over when they're going to get paid, and they get paid through those agents, because we can't do money transfers. I mean, money transfers in Lebanon are not as smooth. In Iraq, not everybody has a bank account. And so you have to manage the payouts through the money transfer agents, like the Western unions of the country. So
Gotcha.
If you're a restaurant and we owe you $5,000, we send you a link that you can that has a unique number with a payment. And you go to that kiosk and you receive your $5,000. You present your ID and you receive the $5,000.
Great. Let's. I wanted to talk a little bit about metrics so that people can follow this along. So, tell us about what gross revenue means to you, what net revenue means. So, what's the difference between gross revenue and net revenue, and how that relationship looks if it's coming out of your warehouse versus if you're delivering for other entities?
Yeah. So gross revenue for the business as a whole is everything the customer is spending on that. So, the price of the pizza, plus the delivery charge, plus any service charges, right? Those are our gross revenues. And when you look at the net of that, we have two business units. For the marketplace business unit, we net out the payouts to the restaurants. So we remove that, and that constitutes our revenues. Basically, they are the commissions that we charge restaurants for listing on the platform, and their delivery charges that the customers pay for their orders. So those are our revenues. For the dark store business unit, or what we call Toters Fresh, the revenues are the gross, so what people are paying, because we're holding the inventory. And so when you say we're over $500 million of gross, that means customers are trusting us with over $500 million in annual spend on the app. And then a third of that is a commissions for the marketplace business unit. And then anything that we charge, that we sell in groceries, which is a $150 million business, by the way, grocery business annually. That makes up the second part of our revenue. So our net revenues are close to 270 million annually. They're approaching the 300 million.
Wow. So just to put in that perspective, you have built a business that is, as you said, at the gross revenue where your customers are trusting you with that money. It's $500 million US dollars.
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy. And then if you look at it from a net revenue lens, you're approaching $300 million, $270 million. I mean, so you built this from basically nothing during this period of turmoil in the 2018 timeframe into a $500 million business. I mean, that is, I want everyone who's listening to really appreciate that. So let's now look back at the milestones along the way. You took us through where you basically had to restart the business after what happened in Beirut. When did you get to, getting to $1 million is a big deal. Getting to $10 million is a big deal. Getting to $100 million is a really big deal. Can you maybe think about some of those milestones along the way and share with us, there were certainly times where cash flow was probably a challenge, where investment was. So maybe take us through how you funded the business as well. Who were the investors? Where did that money come from? Take us through that whole journey.
Yeah. So it's, we've, like in the past, like when we were first starting, our view of what a successful business looks like is completely different than our view now, because we never would have dreamt. We never thought we would get to where we are today. We thought initially, was really like a very naive way of looking at the business. The first business case we were doing, my co-founder and I were that if we get to 50 orders per day, we're going to break even on this business. And then we get to that 50 orders per day, and it's mostly me, my wife, and a couple of friends that are placing those orders. So nobody's breaking even on that business. Trust me. But the milestones kept being, okay, when are we going to get to 500? I remember once, like when in 2017, I think you've heard of Kareem, that was acquired by Uber.
Yes.
Their biz dev team invited us over to have a conversation, and like at the time we were like doing like 100 orders per day, and we thought we had built a significant scale. And they're like, you know what? We could be interested in like partnerships with you when you get to 500. So I come back to Lebanon from Dubai and I tell the team, guys, gotta get to 500 orders per day by the end of the year. And we get to 500 orders per day by the end of 2017. I think when I think about like milestones, our milestones initially were, when do we get to those thousands of orders per day? And then now it's a bunch of both. It's how do we, like today we're at like 85,000 daily orders. And we're thinking our next milestone is 200,000. And we're going to get to over $1 billion in annual GMV. So that's how we're looking at the milestones. And we manage the company very differently than we used to. We're over 800 people now in the company. We were like seven with blurred lines. Like everybody did everything. But yeah, so this is how like what we look forward to. Last year we were at 50,000 orders per day. So 85,000 now is like just over 50% growth, 60 maybe year on year. And a lot of it is there's a lot of focus right now on continuing to grow profitably. We turned profitable in H2 last year, and that's been a game changer for us because, you know, in environment like I was describing, you don't find a lot of investors throwing money at you. You know what I mean? And so to date, we've raised $25 million to create this company, and like the funding journey has been challenging because
how much have you raised altogether? 25 million?
Yeah, 25 million.
So you built this company with just $25 million of investment money. That is, unfortunately, a chunk of that comes from us, which is awesome. But who was the biggest? You know, I know the answer to the question, but tell us who your biggest investors are.
The biggest investors were, from a ticket size from an absolute number perspective, the IFC, from like the World Bank's IFC, International Finance Corporation, wrote the biggest check. Followed
if you could say it again, we had a little bit of internet connection issue there. If you could say
it's the International Finance Corporation, IFC, World Bank's arm for development and investment, and then followed by our lead VC for Series A. They're called BY Venture Partners.
Yep.
And then followed by Merit Ventures. It's an investment company for a major shipping company in the world. The founders or the owners are Lebanese. And then after that, there's like we have some like big players, like one of our early investors, an Iraqi group that invested throughout like seed, Series A, and Series B. Sorry, my electricity here turned off momentarily. It's going to be back now. And then you guys are a big investor. Endeavor Catalyst also participated in our latest round. I don't know if I'm sure I'm missing somebody, but those are examples.
Let's talk more about BY because I met the two brothers. They were at the dinner. At least one of them. I think both of them were at the dinner. So let's tell a little bit about their story and who they are, where they are, and they're pretty vibrant, kind of early stage venture investors in the region.
So I'll be very brief. I mean, I met they grew up in Saudi Arabia, and I grew up in Saudi Arabia. I didn't know them so much back then, but we both studied in Canada. So in Montreal at McGill University, I knew of them, but I didn't directly know them. But when I came back to the region and I worked here for a while and then started the company and was raising the Series A, I bumped into one of them. His name is Gaith. They're twins, by the way. You know that. But they're two twins, two guys, blonde or redheads. Very nice. You can tell them from a mile away. They're extremely nice, very friendly to founders, and very supportive. I mean, I haven't seen them when things are bad or the company is doing really bad because we never got to that point. But very, very nice guys, very pleasant to work with. And they led our Series A and participated in co-led actually our Series B.
And they're in Dubai, if I remember right, correct?
Yeah, correct. So they started in Lebanon and then eventually they set up in Dubai, in Abu Dhabi, I think. Abu Dhabi. Yep.
Let's go off on a tangent and talk about, you mentioned you went to school in, I think you said Toronto. So, and then you also mentioned that you grew up in Saudi Arabia. Take us through your personal journey, kind of, how did you even get prepared to do what you're doing right now?
It's I don't know, honestly, but like looking back, I can understand why I'm where I am. I grew up in Saudi Arabia, like in a family that values hard work and academics and uh, um, you know, being serious. And so, like, I studied. I went through my entire childhood over there in Riyadh, up until high school graduation, and afterwards I moved to Canada, to Montreal, actually, to McGill University, and I,
So how'd you go from the desert of Saudi Arabia to the winters in Montreal? I mean, Montreal is wickedly cold.
Yeah, it's not a choice of weather. It's more of a choice of a brighter future and a country that appreciates talent and wants to develop it. And my family, my dad wanted us to be part of that. And so like we ended up becoming Canadian citizens. I studied there. I love Canada. I worked there. I did electrical engineering because that's the right thing to do. But it was fun and I love it. And after graduating, I worked. My first job was in RF. Actually, my first job was in telemarketing. But my first real job was in Nortel Networks. I was an RF engineer, systems engineer, and it was actually very interesting. And it was great being part of a team that built one of the first LTE radios in the world. I love that experience. Now it's old technology, but at the time it was really exciting. And so I did engineering and R&D for 6 years in Nortel Networks and at Ericsson afterwards when Nortel went bankrupt. But then, I felt that R&D and engineering is great, but I also was interested in something broader, more businessy, and how businesses grew and scaled. And so I got a job at a strategy consulting company in the Middle East. So I moved back from Canada to join a consulting company called Booz and Co.
And what time frame is this? What year would this be?
That was 2011.
Okay.
And I did, 6 years in consulting. So 3 years I spent at Booz and Co. And then afterwards, I spent 3 years at Oliver Wyman. And during those 6 years, I can say, like, the knowledge and the things I got exposed to had a lot to do with what I do today. So I worked primarily with telecom operators on really interesting projects, like commercial strategies, data strategies, capital allocation strategies, sales and distribution, or marketing and distribution. Very interesting topics, but really giving advice to somebody else. And so the lifestyle of a strategy consultant is really hectic. I didn't mind the long hours. I minded the hecticness of it. Like having to suit up, get on a plane, go from one city to another. It's just not something that I wanted to do for the long term. And so I wanted to build something of my own. And that led me to Toters. I saw, okay, you know what? There's, it doesn't make sense how we order food or how we order groceries. It just doesn't make sense. So I decided with my co-founder to build Toters and start in Lebanon. And our business case, as I was describing earlier, was foolish and wasn't realistic necessarily. Electricity is off again. It's going to come back. But yeah, so I was saying the plan was not realistic. And Lebanon is seemingly a very small market, but the small market has a lot of consumption that's relevant to our business. So it makes it big for us. So that's how it started. And when you start Toters, you realize you know nothing about business. because you're in the sidelines, looking at everything from far away and telling other people what to do. But then when you start the business and have to deal with all the things that you don't want to deal with, like legal and
all the practical realities of how are you going to get paid, and what are you going to do with the money, and what if this happens and that happens. So it's the consultants. Consultants play a very valuable role, but consulting often doesn't. It's easy to tell people what to do. It's hard to actually get stuff to happen at the end of the day that you need to happen. And when you're building a business of the complexity that is Toters, there's a lot of details that have to be, worked through.
So when we started, I was the first product manager and first quality assurance person. And then we had three barely committed developers. And actually one of them was committed, but others weren't. And so the first versions of the product, I don't know how I left my job for this first version of the product. But over time, we got some funding, some friends and family funding. We grew the team. We scaled where we needed to scale. And now it's a completely different beast.
Great. So let's go back to, we talked about one of your investors. Talk about, is it the IFC? Talk about the organization that led kind of your most recent round.
Yeah. So, they made a lot of sense for us.
So tell us who they are, and why they invest in the region.
So they're part of the World Bank, and they're what is called impact investors. So they invest in economies and companies that can have impact on their economies. So they're also development funds. So they want to develop their economy. So Lebanon and Iraq are of interest to the IFC and the World Bank. And so they have teams that are investing in projects, whether they're startups or, manufacturing facilities or other. And each type of investment has a different pocket. The venture pocket is the people we spoke to and approached for an investment. And, we presented the case for Toters and how it enables micro and small, medium enterprises in the countries, and that we build infrastructure for the countries to enable, the digital economy. And I think I see that they're strong believers in that. So they brought the investment to their investment committee and ended up leading our Series B round.
And when was that? Because that's the round that we came in as well. For our viewers, when was that investment? How big was that round in total? How much did they invest in that round?
We raised it at the end of 2021, early 2022. The total round was 15 million. They invested 5. So before that, we had $5 or $6 million of total investment between the seed, Series A, and any convertibles that we raised from Series B.
Mm-hmm. Great. And then you mentioned the Lebanese family that's in the shipping business. I think if I remember right, they're based in Greece, or was it France? One of the two?
South of France, yeah.
South of France. Well, tell us about that investor and how they ended up on your cap table.
So they're also, they're Lebanese, old Lebanese family that became French, really, right? And they own one of the biggest companies, shipping companies in the world, and they wanted to invest back in Lebanon. So they obviously have a major hub in Lebanon for shipping, and they created their family office there as well. And they made connections with different venture capitals to co-invest with them. So around the Series A mark, they wanted exposure to the Toters opportunity, and they invested back then, 2018. And then again, during the Series B, they wanted to double down, invest more. So they've invested again in our Series B.
Great. And there, I should probably know this, but was there a round after that round? I think it was a convertible round.
Yeah, we did a convertible right around the war started, like when
that's right.
you visited. Yes. We were prepping for a big Series C to build a lot of cash buffer and expand very aggressively. Unfortunately, the war started, and we thought it was not really appropriate to go out to the world and fundraise for the region, and so we instead decided to raise funds from our existing investors, and we did a small convertible. Luckily, the company remained profitable throughout, and we didn't really need to raise further funds. And I think if we continue to manage the company and execute, we won't need funding anymore.
Mm-hmm. So when the war hit, we were all worried about what impact it would have on the business. But people need food. They probably need it delivered to them more in a time of stress than in kind of a time of complete security. So the need was actually higher, but the difficulty in both running the business and, everyone's, disrupted. How was it running the business over the last year?
So I think there's two phases. There's the phase of when the exchanges started in September 2023, up until September 2024, when the major escalation happened, the daily airstrikes on Beirut, on all areas of Lebanon, intensified. And so that would be what I would characterize as phase two. During phase one, we just got to a new normal of high stress, right? People continued, whoever wanted to leave the country left. There wasn't a lot of them. And life kind of continued normally, despite the war in the South. The war was confined to the South. And so we were managing and thinking, okay, is there going to be war? Is there not going to be? The pessimistic side of me would always say, guys, there's going to be war. It's going to come to us. And so we lived in that fear up until it happened. So before that, there was nothing to be done. Because we would sit and think, okay, let's do business continuity planning. But then we're we don't even know what's going to happen. So when it happens, we need to do crisis cell or a crisis team that deals with it, which is what we did when phase two of this crisis happened. So when the escalation intensified, or when the airstrikes intensified, the next day we formed a team that first looked after the safety of everybody that in the ecosystem, drivers, partners, employees, made sure we prioritized that. And then we also were planning financially what we would do. First, we told the team, you can work from wherever you want, in Lebanon or outside Lebanon. So we went fully remote. And so we gave everybody the flexibility to work from wherever they wanted. And then we did financial planning. What happens if orders dip further and further and further? And we assigned, severity levels and monitored that on a daily basis. And, planned to take decisions at different levels of reduction, and took some decisions like we stopped investing in anything that's not grocery. Because it made sense to invest in grocery and expanding the grocery footprint, but not like advertise, right?
But the people who work in the warehouses, the team that work in the warehouses and the drivers, they couldn't work remote. They had to be kind of in their locations. That must have been very difficult depending on what warehouse it was.
Yeah, and we would have to close certain areas or warehouses depending on the threat of the day. And there was a whole like system of how we would do that. If there's a threat, because like also sometimes when the airstrikes were coming, we would get warnings of what area is gonna. Sometimes, I mean, I don't know the percentage, but like we would get notification of where the airstrikes are going to take place from the army. Not so much in advance, but something to work with. So depending on that, if we were operated in an area close to that, we would close that area off. Tell the employees to leave, or the drivers.
And was Iraq, was that being affected by this, or was Iraq somewhat stable through?
Although Iraq has some groups that are supportive of one side of the group that's fighting, but no, overall, nothing got affected.
Okay, so let's start looking forward in time. So now things are stable. Hopefully they remain stable. What are you going to do with Toters? What does the next 1, 2, 5 years look like for the business?
So there's a number of things we're excited about. I'm excited about the possibility of expanding beyond our 2 markets. I won't get into the details yet because I don't want to share them yet. But there's a few potential markets that would make sense for us, either directly or through partnership. And so, this is something that we're assessing, and the idea of, growing to over $1 billion in gross and beyond that is really exciting for the business, right? Just from a numbers perspective. So that's really it's difficult, but it's something. It would be a big feat if we achieve that. But then other things that are exciting are on the growth front in our markets, like small things like how do we serve customers better and bring more than just food to them. So more like extending the supply and aggregating more beyond food. This is really starting to move into Amazon model territory, which makes our business even more defensible. But also it's a need in the market. More importantly, it's a need in the market because we don't have Amazons here and supply is extremely fragmented and there's no system that connects all of those sellers or fulfills their orders quickly and efficiently. And so I see a very big opportunity there for us and we're excited about it. We're excited about some more of engineering projects, like how do we make delivery more efficient automatically? That's creating a lot of value for the company and a lot more profitability. So that's exciting. We've always been excited about profitability because of the funding environment that we live in, and so more profitability for us means more defensibility or more sustainability.
Yep. So talk about the FinTech side. What opportunities do you see to build upon the FinTech platform that you've established to run the business? That's got to be an opportunity as well.
Yeah. It's definitely an opportunity. We're working on a project that could materialize into a full vertical that we end up giving to our customers, or a full product that we expose to our customers. It's in the very early stages, but there's also a lot of frictions in peer-to-peer payments in our countries. We don't have Venmos or Zelles. And so transferring money means you have to go down to one of those agents, cash agents, and, give a phone number and ask. It's just like a very, very tedious process that has a lot of room for improvement. Like if food delivery was an issue when we started it, this is an even worse nightmare for users of this service. So that's something we're excited about, like with those ventures, the ones that are not proven yet, I try to temper the excitement level that I have. But we have a project planning to explore that in addition to the e-commerce, to the non-food project.
Great. So let's talk a little bit about Endeavor. We met because of Endeavor Global. How important has Endeavor been in your journey? Endeavor has an office on the ground in Lebanon and offices in Jordan and Turkey and Saudi Arabia and UAE. So it's active in the region. But what's your connection with Endeavor, and how has Endeavor been helpful to you guys?
First of all, Endeavor has been a great value to our company. Before joining, I was very skeptical about all those networks. I never thought any of those networks worked. But I went along to meet the Endeavor team in 2018, and even while going through the process, I'm like, what's the worst that can happen? Worst that can happen is I wasted a bit of time, and then I stopped investing any time in this network. But since over time, I've seen the value of connecting with the Endeavor team in Lebanon and the entire Endeavor network globally, which has brought a lot of support in many ways that we didn't think possible in the past. It's opened doors. It's connected us to other founders, and that's one, you know that you're not alone. It's like a young president's organization, but for startup founders. And I find it very valuable because, it's like any network. It's the more you put into the network, the more you get out of it. So the more time you invest and the more open you are, the more learning, the more connections you can make. And so we've over time we've realized how much value this network can bring. And then eventually, we met investors like you. We got Endeavor Catalyst to invest in our company. We're meeting founders of companies similar to ours at more advanced stages, and we can learn from them and reflect on what we're doing. And so that's huge value that is added, and it's for free, practically.
Yeah, no, it's been great. I don't think I would be, my trip to the Middle East, in which I visited you, was inspired by an Endeavor kind of retreat in Turkey. So I used that as a reason to get out to the Middle East for the first time, see the different countries' environments. You and I never would have met if it wasn't for Endeavor. We've done one or two other investments in that region that were related to Endeavor, and it's just been fantastic. Linda, as you know, was on my board for about 6 or 7 years at Zayo, all the way to our exit. So watching what she and the Endeavor team have been doing to make a difference, in significant difference across the globe, has just been a pleasure to be a little bit of a part of, but to see firsthand and kind of appreciate what all is going on. So your team is kind of a prime example of how you can build a tech company from scratch in a part of the world that most people would have not thought that could happen, and it makes the world a better place. And I'm appreciative of being an investor, appreciative of getting to know you and your team along the way, and excited about what the future is for Toters. So,
Thanks.
I can't wait to hear more about your other ideas offline, but this is just great. So thank you so much. And, being able to share kind of what's going on in the Middle East in such a personal way with kind of the people who will watch this is also pretty special.
Thanks a lot, Dan. And thanks for your trust. And, we feel proud for somebody from Colorado investing in our company and making our story come true.
Great. Awesome. And we got to get you out here and experience some of these ski mountains.
For sure. Looking forward to it.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
All right.
Have a nice day.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Bear Roars. If you enjoyed the podcast, please like and subscribe on your listening platform. This podcast was produced by Loud Bear Productions and edited by Kendall Weinberg with support from Courtney Caruso, Emily Reed, and Gibson Siegert.